Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yo, set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 So life ain't easy, yo, I think there's a reason though. Ups and downs, just like every different season, yo. Sometimes I'm high, other times I'm barely breathing, though. I always gotta fight and hide from the demons, yo. Negative thoughts are poison, they rot. Head full of flaws, so here come the clouds. They'll never stop unless I can swap all the bad for the good in my head when I'm lost. Yeah, so I'ma fake it till I make it. Positive thoughts are overtaken, I got patience. One day at a time is how you operate a cadence. A flow, you grow, you show yourself a foundation. Stay away from all the shit that causes temptation. I know that I like to do it cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a narration. Don't expect greatness, do my best, man, I'll take it. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
As you wake up in the morning, you want to find the latest, greatest information about criminal cases and have an intuitive conversation about the suspects associated with these cases. Head over to the Bullhorn Betty channel on YouTube. Get breaking news right here on the Bullhorn Betty channel. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty Coffee Club. Enjoy your stay and enjoy your day.
Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty Kids Club.
am Bullhorn Betty. I cover true crime, and we've got several cases that we are going to be going over this morning. TGIF to all of my beautiful people in the house. For those that are on Twitter, I can't see who you are. However, the people here on YouTube, it's nice to see you. We've got it streaming on 2 different channels. So if you're on Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories and you don't mind being over there with your 34 people, that's great. If you want to come over to the main channel, you're more than welcome to, but we're running it on both channels to let our other channel say, hey, it's so nice to see you guys. So we're going to be covering 4 cases this morning. I forgot one of the icons in the thumbnail. Sorry about that. But we're going to be covering Leilani Simon, Sebastian Rogers, Leila Santanello, and Daniela Mendiola. We're just going to give updates on these cases as we are rolling out. We're going to keep our focus in the second half of this predominantly on Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He's a 15-year-old boy that went missing on February 26, 2024, just several months ago. He hasn't been seen or heard from since. We also have Leila Santanello. She disappeared over a year previous on June 27th, 2023, and she disappeared from Kingsport, Tennessee. We have Daniela Mendiola, one of our newest cases that we're just bringing aboard. We're just learning about her and her case. This is a situation where she was ran over standing in a driveway waiting for a ride. She was gravely injured but lied in a ditch for 43 minutes while her assailant drove off, got his story straight, grabbed his people, and came back in a different car. And it's very possible that she might not get the full justice she's deserved because she has a different color skin than me and some of my audience members. It's a horrific story. It's one that we want to make sure that we are very loud in that community to say, no, we do not agree with that type of policy. We are all Americans here. And at the end of the day, we're human beings and we have a right to live. And this 17-year-old girl, that was stolen from her by a man that was utilizing some type of substance and driving at an excessive rate of speed, which he's accustomed to doing for many years before this happened. And then, of course, the one that we're going to be starting out with this morning is Leilani Simon. We were out there, boots on the ground. We were reporting from the scene. We were just waiting for the handcuffs and her being arrested and walked out. That was the true purpose of us being there. It was never supposed to be to advocate or to be activists for truth and justice and transparency from the Chatham County Police Department. But that's what we ended up having to do because this child was beaten from the time he was born to the time of his death, 20 months, his whole life filled with abuse. And law enforcement allowed his abuser, his mother, Leilani Simon, to lay her head in her bed for weeks, allowed her to utilize substances, even though she was on 2 different probations in 2 different states and could not pass a drug test. They didn't even need to charge her with her son to put her behind bars. It was a disgrace. It's a disgrace to law enforcement what happened in this case. And of course, we and the people of that community and people came in seeking justice and demanding justice for Quinton Simon. We were called a lot of things covering this case, and more importantly, called a liar. We were told that this child drowned in a pool or drowned in a tub because she was just, too intoxicated to handle her son. And the information we learned, boots on the ground, that couldn't have been further from the truth. We learned that she targeted this child. She never had a motherly instinct toward this child, and she beat this child multiple times in front of multiple people, and nobody really were able to do anything to help. The state was about to take her children away from her, and her good old mom decided to step in and try to save her from getting her children taken, which in all fairness, had they been taken, all 3 of her children would be safe, and she would not be in jail right now for murder and lying to law enforcement. So before I bring up our special guest, we're going to read this little article here. Georgia mother found guilty of killing her 20-month-old son, dumping his body in a landfill. A Georgia woman has been convicted of murdering in the killing of her 20-month-old son, whose body was found in a landfill 2 years ago. A Chatham County jury found Leilani Simon guilty on Friday of all 19 charges filed against her in the death of her son, Quinton Simon, including malice murder, concealing his death, and disposing of his body in a dumpster, according to the Savannah Morning News. Simon, 24, reported Quinton missing on October 5th, 2022. The Chatham County Police Department reported. The county borders the Atlantic coast. The sole suspect in this case, Simon, told officers her son disappeared from his indoor playpen at their home outside of Savannah. Police announced that Quinton was believed to be dead on October 12, 2022, and arrested Simon the following month. They knew she was the suspect on October 12th, and again, did not arrest her until the following month. The verdict came just after a 9-day trial, which prosecutor called dozens of witnesses to testify, including police, a drug dealer, and Simon's neighbor and babysitters. Quinton's bones were found in a landfill weeks after he disappeared. During the investigation, police said evidence led them to believe Quinton's remains were at the waste management landfill in Chatham County, and law enforcement combed through 1.2 million pounds of trash in the landfill over a 30-day period. The boy's remains were found. I want you guys to hear that, because this is going to be important when we get over to Sebastian Rogers' case. They combed through 1.2 million pounds of trash over a 30-day period to find this young boy. Not 7 days, 30 days, because it's a lot of trash. After weeks of sifting through the landfill, Hadley, which needs to be fired, and when the heat was on and we were threatening to sue, he was leaving office. And now all of a sudden he's back. So my work is not done in Chatham County. No police chief should not be the police chief when you let somebody that murdered their child lay their head in bed instead of arresting him on the violation of probation. That should have been done immediately. Shame on him. Police, FBI investigators, and the Department of Natural Resource officers found what appeared to be human remains, including bones. The remains were sent to the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia, and later determined to belong to the toddler. During the opening statements, prosecutors told jurors they did not intend to prove how Simon killed her son, only that she did. They outlined her drug use, a rocky relationship with her boyfriend, and her shifting stories following the boy's disappearance. During the trial, jurors heard testimony from Simon's ex-boyfriend, who agreed to a wiretap in a hotel with Simon, as well as witnesses who refuted that she met Simon on the night of Quinton's disappearance at a gas station. Officers also testified that Simon's cell phone records contradict her story that she was at the house the entire night of Quinton's disappearance. An FBI agent testified that Simon did not seem shocked when police started searching the landfill for the toddler's remains. During the closing argument Thursday, District Attorney Jenny Parker said the boy's death was not an accident, that she killed her son, which is what's been reported here on the Bullhorn Betty channel since we took over this case and started following it and reporting on it. Defense attorney Martin Hillard argued that the prosecution's theories of the case fell apart during Simon's former boyfriend, because Simon's former boyfriend told police he had seen Quinton multiple times on the morning of the child's disappearance. Hillard said plans to file a motion for new trial. He says he plans to file a motion for new trial. Simon faces up to life in prison without parole when she is sentenced. Again, many of you guys know how I feel about this particular matter. And quite frankly, I think she should get the death penalty. I am pro DP and will continue to be pro DP for animals just like her. But she's going to be saved. She's going to be saved by our justice system when she refused to save her own son. She's going to be treated better than she treated her own son, and that quite frankly makes me sick. I'm an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth type of person, and quite frankly, in my world, I'm barbaric when it comes to that. And in all fairness, I think that people's punishment, if they murder somebody, they should have to be murdered in the same or taken out DP in the same fashion of their victims. That's how barbaric I am. But that's too inhumane here in America. It's too inhumane. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up a special guest. And as you guys know, this is my mod, the real me too. I was supposed to be in court with her. Judge Betty was supposed to be there, and she was not. Thank you so much, Karen, for being here. Come here. Sorry, Delilah wants up. She wants to say hi to everybody. Hey, everybody. Hi, Coffee Club. I'm here. So thank you, Karen. You, outside of, I think, 2 days, you were there for the entire trial. Is that correct?
Yes.
There was a few things, and we did have you kind of give us an update on what halfway through the trial. I think we had you here a couple weeks ago. We had you here to talk about what you had witnessed so far. Why don't you run us down of everything, up to the point where we left off, just to give people like a Reader's Digest version, and then we're going to get into the second half that we haven't talked about, because there was testimony that we were unable to see because they were going to allow it to be, if you're sitting in the courtroom, you could see it, predominantly the drug dealer. So why don't you just give us just a brief run through up to that point, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. So you want me to talk about the dealer right now?
No, no,
Oh,
I would like
before that. Okay.
I just want
Basically,
an update for the audience about the what all happened in court when you first got there. I just want a Reader's Digest version of the
Okay.
stuff we already covered.
All right. Basically throughout, we'll talk about Leilani throughout the trial. Especially, I mean, off camera. You guys seen some on camera, but she just didn't have for someone that was facing the charges that she was facing. She didn't have a care in the world. I mean, we know she didn't care for Quinton, and she showed that. She showed no remorse. But throughout the thing, I was just like blown away that never once on her face did she show any sign of like, wow, I could, this could be the end of my life right here. This is my life, that I'm fighting for. And I never saw that. I mean, she was always, she was just, I think, enjoying, I mean, maybe the time out, just enjoying being around maybe normal people. And she acted like she was part of the team. Well, I guess in a way she is, but she was that really hit me the most. The remorse part, we seen that outside the house, so that was no surprise there. But the fact that she showed nothing was like, I mean, she wasn't facing a year or two. She's facing, life without parole or life in prison, which I'm praying she gets a life without parole because that's what she deserves. So that kind of blew me away. Like I said, what we see a lot in the court when we're there. We do hear and we see a lot. So, I did see a lot of that. In the courtroom. The fact that nobody was there for Quinton still upsets me today. That really bothers me the most.
Explain that to the audience. Nobody was there for Quinton. What do you mean by that?
Well, as we've seen in trials that we covered, with Alec, the Gannon Stout case, and many others, there's always somebody there, and that's very important. Somebody has to be there for the victim. I mean, that speaks a lot. And I mean, not only what bothers me the most is we knew that Quinton wasn't loved by his mother, but I mean, now it's like he was just being totally disrespected by the grandmother, the step grandfather. I mean, the grandmother. Yeah, the
Let me
grandmother.
hold you right there. Did you find it odd that Billy Joe never showed up for her daughter or her grandson?
Yes, exactly. I did. And what bothered me is after the trial, she decided to put out a post that she didn't go. She wanted to be there not for Quinton. She wanted to be there for her daughter, and she didn't go because she was afraid of people. Now I was at every hearing. I think I missed one hearing due to my back surgery, and nobody bothered her. There was, as we know, there's people that work in the courtroom, all the officers, that would have protected her going in and out. Her father was in court. I want to say 4 times. I mean, he sat with me. We talked a lot, and he knew and she knew that there was nobody there. There was nobody showing up. I went the first day and I got there at 7:30 in the morning because I expected lines out the door, and nobody.
And you did say a grandparent showed up.
Yes, Billy's father showed up, and he
So
was there
Billy's
100,
father could show up, but she could not.
but she could not. And if you happen to notice when she'd walk in, the days that he was there, she'd turn to the back of the courtroom, and they would exchange, I love you, and blah blah blah. And yeah, so he was the only one that was there, nobody else. I mean, for that family to represent Quentin. And I'm going to tell you, the jurors noticed. I know they noticed.
Mhm.
Because the day of the when they had the closing, there was I counted 9. There could have been up to 12. There was 3 rows of law enforcement, FBI, that worked the case and that testified that were there. And I mean,
Mhm.
I became teary eyed. I was very emotional, and I was like, and it just melted my heart seeing that they cared, and they cared more than apparently what the family cared. They were there for Quentin. They were there to support Attorney Dean, and the jurors did notice that. I mean, they looked back and they're like, because there's never anyone in court, and there was like 4 of them that every day would come in and out, especially leaving, would just scan the whole back of the whole courtroom just to see who was there, and so they definitely noticed. So that was great. And like I said,
There
when you go, go ahead.
there was a time when the judge, we even saw Leilani mouth some things. Can you explain who she was communicating with? Was it multiple occasions? What did she say? And what the judge said about it?
She mouthed off. The one where the judge had to address her was she mouthed off the babysitter's daughter, who was only 17, and she called her an effing liar. And the judge had, that was, I guess people had called the district attorney's office. They reviewed it, and they seen it, and I mean, it was very obvious what she said. You could, and the judge had to talk to her about that. She also addressed Danny. Same thing with Danny, saying that, every time she wanted to like make a point or something, when it was against her, what he was saying, because his testimony was very damaging, she would mouth off to her lawyer stuff about Danny. I didn't say that. That was a lie. And even with Danny, when he left the courtroom, which she did with no other witness, she turned her whole body around. He wasn't looking at her, his back was already towards her, and she just stared him down. I think that was for was to make it noticeable with the jury. You know what I mean? Like, say, see, this guy's a liar, and she was just trying to make a point with the jury on that one. But she was very disrespectful to a lot of witnesses when they were up there, making little, snarky remarks to her lawyer and comments. And if something like the testimony got really detailed, where, I mean, they were just calling her out and she was on camera, she'd put a, pen to the paper and she just start scribbling away. I mean, there's many times the attorney to the right just like, put his hand up, like he just didn't, want to pay attention. He didn't want to be bothered. He was a little more distant towards her than the other one was. But you
Well,
can
I
tell,
think I know why. He had to pay
yeah,
attention because when he was doing the directive verdict argument, he was
right.
having to pay attention to every little detail of what was going on in the court hearing. And I think Leilani was causing problems with him hearing. He's an older man, probably has hard hearing. Um, and he was the one doing the directive verdict argument. So that might have been had a lot to do with it, because you didn't really see him get up and argue the case that much. It was the main attorney that
Right.
did all of the questioning, but he was there for a reason, and I think it was to pay attention to the proceedings, to make notes about what he was going to argue with before they went on to the verdict.
Yeah, I agree. That's what he was. He was doing that. Keeping all that stuff written down, and you'd always go to the back, and he, in the paperwork that they had. So yeah, that's what he was paying attention to, all of that stuff. Um, but like I said, when you're out there, whether it's on the scene, like we were, or on the hearings or the courtroom. I mean, you went to some of the hearings with me. You know what goes on in the courtrooms. We've seen it with Alec. You'd be surprised how you can overhear so much.
Hmm.
You hear a lot. And you see a lot. So I always knew who the next witness was going to be coming up, and they'd be talking to up there. You could see their demeanor. Were they nervous? Were they upset? Upset. And there was many of them. I mean, the babysitter and her daughters were very upset. Crying. The detective, who's the one that found the first piece of baby Q's
His
skull.
skull, his
Yeah,
skull. And
and
she explained that, and when you explain her reaction, pause, because I've got some commentary after that. So explain when she went up on the witness stand, and a little bit about her and her testimony.
yeah. She was the first one. I don't remember her name offhand, but she was the first. She first of all, she volunteered, because it was all volunteers that did this, and she
Hmm.
didn't miss one day. She was there every single day, and we know we were there how hard it was during that time. But she was there for
Georgia Hot.
every. Yeah, she was there for every single one. She didn't miss one day, and she found that first piece of skull, and you know, just the reaction from everybody there, because they had.
For the for the people that have not watched this trial, talk to me about her age. She was a younger officer, was she not?
Yeah, she was very young. Um, I'd say, God, she got to be 30 or under. I don't think she
Yeah,
was any older than, probably
I
not
agree
even
with
30.
that. Yeah.
Right. And she was very emotional. They were all, when they found that, because their chances of finding him were like zero. It was really not any chance at all of finding
But
him.
I believe, did I not? I kept saying
Yes,
the logistics there. If they just keep digging, they will find him.
right,
They will find him. I remember saying that on multiple lives. I had faith. I had faith because I have seen the work out in those landfills before. And
right,
honestly, everybody's saying that all the landfill search never turn up anything. And I'm like, if they
right,
stay there long enough, they will find him if he's there, because I've seen successful landfill searches. Actually, I've seen nothing but successful landfill searches up until Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, the ones that I've covered.
right.
So yeah, but it was still a needle in the haystack, and we all knew that going in.
Yes, what was I going to say? That day, like I said, that day was very, very emotional. And it really changed everything. And from what we were told too, that they couldn't prove at the time. That's why when she answered on the stand about finding, multiple bones, she says, "Well, I don't know if it was Quinton's, because at the time when they handed it over, they didn't know what the results were. But from what people are saying is she found a lot of pieces of Quinton. She just had a knack for it, and she was very, very good. She got very emotional. There was nothing from Leilani when she was testifying. The pictures that I seen that weren't published were awful. I mean, I've seen a lot worse, but I mean, just seeing it, some of the pictures they put up there. I mean, just the skin from his neck down to his feet was just one big kind of piece, and it was just like, seeing an outline of his body was horrible. No reaction from her, but this law enforcement, she broke down. And usually, like, when you're in cases like that, you get choked up yourself. When you see other people choke up, it's very easily to break down yourself. And there was nothing from her. And when
Mhm.
this young woman left the stand, she had to be. It was They took a break after that, so we went out, and we always use the restroom. She was in the restroom being consoled by the district attorney's office. And Mr. Dean was outside. Obviously, he wasn't going to go in the women's room, but he was concerned. They were very, very close team. They really were. He was outside the thing, making sure she was all right. When she was in there with them, I walked out and gave them their privacy. She needed. I wasn't going to stay in there and intrude on anything, so I walked out. But she was a wreck. She really was. The babysitters were a wreck. Danny was a wreck. A few law enforcement, other ones were pretty a wreck about it too.
Yeah,
Uh,
hold it right there. Hold it right there.
I don't know
Did
if you
you
want to.
find it odd that you have all of these people, including the officer that found this young toddler's skull?
Right.
Do you find it odd that they couldn't, it was hard for them to talk about it and see the pictures of this 20-month-old child in this condition, and Leilani had no emotion on her face?
No, she had nothing at all. And we all became to love Quinton, and we became very emotional with it, and it tore me up. You know what I mean? We've never personally met him. We never got to hold him. We never got to, love on him. But still, it affected me, and I mean, she had to have some type of something for him. I mean, she was his mother. I mean,
But she didn't seem like she
but she
did. She
didn't.
seemed like
No,
she hated him
I
even up
mean
to the
nothing.
trial. She had no
Nope.
real emotion for her son.
Yep. I mean, not even a little bit of choked up, And then as soon as these witnesses would get done, Andrea, I mean, she'd be like back here smiling and joking with the attorneys and eating her crackers and like trying to engage with the court officers that were there, which she just tried to laugh and smile at them and like she was like a personal friend. And they just didn't really acknowledge back to her. There was one that kind of did. The blonde one that was in there would kind of be a little more friendly with her, but the other ones weren't friendly at all with her. And she just acted like she was there for some whole total other reason. But so
Did you like when we were out there, and it was emotional. I mean, this boy that none of us knew, never met before, affected a lot of people in the community, people further than from the community. It affected us. I mean, when we were out there, in all reality, we were all just waiting for the arrest. When we realized the arrest wasn't coming, that's kind of when things changed, for our group. And there has to be a different. Well, I don't want to diss anybody that was there at the night crew or anything there. They were there on their own accord, fighting their own beliefs in this injustice, because some of the people that were from their communities had their children taken away from them for some of the stupidest reasons I had
right,
ever heard of in my life. And you've got this woman that's been abusing her children, her mother, saying, with no home study, nobody looking into the fact that Billy Joe was leaving for months
right,
on end. I mean, these kids could have been saved. And that's what really irritated and aggravated. I just want to put that out there because I don't have disdain for the night crew there. They were there
no,
because most of them had their kids taken away for stupid shit. Excuse my language, but that's what they did. And this woman was abusing her kids and never got her children taken away. Moreover, I think all three of her kids had substances in their body when they were born, which usually is an automatic, taking away until things are resolved. But in this case, she was treated differently when it came to her kids, differently than these other people that were out there that were angry that they can't see their children and they've never laid a hand on their child.
right. There was a couple there that would just one of them was living in a hotel, and that's one reason that she was living out of the car at first and then into the hotel, but that's why her kids were taken. So they had a lot of rage towards Chatham County, to the system. So they had a lot of rage, and that's where their rage was coming from. They were coming out, my kid's taken away, and you do this to your kid, and they were dedicated. I mean, they really were
They,
dedicated.
they were angry. They were
Yes.
angry. They wanted to fight for this boy, and they felt it was an injustice all the way around, an injustice for them on a
Yeah.
personal level, but moreover, an injustice on a little 20-month-old child.
Right. I could touch base. I don't know if you want me to go for it. I'm not. I don't remember where we left
Yeah,
off the
I
last
think
time I talked.
I think
But
now we've spent enough time on the kind of the
okay.
Reader's Digest version of what happened before we talked to you the first time.
Right.
So since we talked to you the first time about this case, more information, more witnesses came on the stands, and there was one officer that couldn't be seen on the on our end, and of course the infamous drug dealer that
Right.
wasn't seen on our end. So why don't we just pick it up from that point forward? What did you see after, let's say, after Michelle's testimony on this? What did you think? I thought Michelle, well, let me just back up here. I thought Michelle and her daughter did an amazing job. They're the ones that had Quinton the most. They're the ones that really loved that child. They're the ones that whenever they saw Leilani, starting to hurt Quinton, they would always try to remove Quinton from their home and say, "Hey, I'll just take him home with me." And their home was literally across the street. So there was, what does it say? Let's see. Oh, golly. What does it say? Your fate will be on the line, criminal. Yeah, my fate is on the line, but I believe in the justice system, BS. And I believe that this has nothing to do with our topic of conversation, but I'll take the money. But please be kind to the victims that we are discussing, and please don't make it personal. Okay, keep going.
All right. Yeah. That FBI agent. She just didn't want to be. She was actually one of the ones that was there for the closing and the verdict. So she was there right till the end. As far as the drug guy, uh, there was reaction from when he walked in. The jurors noticed. I mean, I think it was one of the first times where they actually all watched that door when he was coming in, anticipating what was going to be said.
Mhm.
Um, they didn't go ahead. I think what they did instead was they used Detective Lemon's testimony. That's why all them text messages are read first, so they wouldn't have to ask him that. I guess the DAs they were kind of worried. This was discussed in court without the jurors. That I guess they were worried that if they had to ask him this kind of stuff. He might not come through truthfully. He might be afraid to answer some things. So they avoided that by using Detective Lemon for all the messages. What would just actually probably been better because it was right there in writing and it was all truthful. So basically, what he stated was how they met, and they met through Zane's father. He's the one how he met. He met him through them, and he did know Danny, but that's how they originally met. And he lived in he was staying in a abandoned trailer that was abandoned, and his mother's trailer was in back of that. So that's what used to meet up with him, and just basically that he didn't see her that night. He found out about Clinton a few days later. So they really didn't get into much, but the big part was the jurors noticed him. He was, I think he was what, 48? Was he? I think it was 48. So
He
as much,
was definitely older. Do
yes,
you
he was in
know
his
what
40s.
what purpose? Because he denied her going over to his house and he denied her paying, but there was a payment of $80 that evening to him, no?
Yes, so that was a little bit confusing, because he said that he didn't meet up with her. Now, whether she actually paid, I don't know if the payment was through a Cash App or something.
It
I'm
was.
not.
It
Yeah.
was like a
Okay.
Cash App or Venmo or something along those
Right.
lines. I think it was Cash App, but yeah, it was an $80 payment. Um, but if it's my understanding that they did have some evidence that she went to that location.
Right. There was a talk about him having a cousin too, with the same last
And maybe
name.
she picked up from him. Maybe she went
Yeah.
over there. He wasn't there. She made a payment to him, and he
Right.
told his cousin to give
So
her
I think
something.
it was actually only, I think it was a $20 payment, which was for the smoke stuff, which is kind of weird. You're gonna go out that time in the morning, you know what I mean, for a $20 payment or whatever you got. Well, she cashed after, but I think the $80 was the other thing maybe she was getting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he denied meeting her that night and said he didn't find out until days later about what happened. But really,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't drill him very long. But the point was the jurors just on his appearance, he didn't go in there and try to dress up for court. He went in there and looked, his part, put it that way. And the jurors noticed, you know what I mean? So they were very intrigued by him. Knowing what was said on the in the text messages before he came on. So that was very interesting. I met our friend who was there for the verdict, Chief Hadley. He was sitting in the court because what happened was I was outside waiting for the verdict, and after lunch, I said I'm going to go back inside, and I sat inside with the reporters and stuff, and Chief Hadley was there, and he was talking with us, and he was bringing up stuff, and talking about the reporter was asking about the chances of finding Quinton in the landfill. And I said, well, you stated at the time, you said there was a 10% chance. He goes, oh, I did say that? Like, yeah, I remember you stating that. And he goes, well, to be honest with you, he goes, I don't even think I gave it a 2% chance. He says, we really, we were hoping and hoping, and, hats off to the searchers that did a great job. But that's what he thought. And he actually brought up, they were, talking about us being out there and Bullhorn Betty. And
Who did?
Chief Hadley. Well, actually, our friend Andy, the reporter, is the one who brought it up to him. And he's like, oh, yeah, Bullhorn Betty. He goes, and who was the other one? He says, the one that got about, like, Dolly. He goes, yes, Dolly Vision. He said, yeah. He
Yeah.
mentioned that.
I
But,
don't like going into any community. I would love nothing more than to
yeah,
go into these communities and just report, the story and just be there for the arrest and,
right,
the press conferences and stuff like that. I'd love nothing more than to do that, but that's just not in my DNA when I see an injustice. When I
right,
see an injustice, I don't complain about things. You guys know a lot about me. And the one thing I don't like to do is to endlessly complain without action. So when I
right,
see something, if I'm going to be complaining about it, I'm going to do something about it.
right. I mean, we went out there with all the good intentions, and it's the drama wasn't caused by you or Dolly. It was brought to us. It was sent to us by the family,
Yeah.
and
The
I mean,
family that was trying to cause distractions
yeah,
in the truth, much like what we deal with in all of our cases. The bad part of the family gravitates to these criminal channels to help their
right.
heavy lifting, to help them with criminal conduct online, to
It
help
just
create
show,
these distractions and create the doubt in these court hearings. And as you see, it doesn't work. These hate channels should be out of business. They should be held accountable for what they are doing and what they are being paid to do.
right.
Um, yeah,
It was yeah, it was disturbing, and as we've seen, we really hit on when we heard early on that she didn't care for, she had no love for Quentin. Matter of fact, she I hate to use the word hate, but she despised. Well, I'll use despise because she despised him. She took all her frustrations out on
she
him.
didn't love them.
No, and then it was just more apparent, like the whole family. I mean, to be putting signs in your window representing a channel and not putting anything up for Quentin, putting disco balls up, playing Disney music in the window. I mean, coming out there. I mean, how many occasions? Remember the lady that I don't know if she was coming after you, that short lady, her friend that was hammered. She went after one of us out there that night. They were so drunk. They were having liquor delivered to the
They
house.
were partying.
We heard
They
signs of
there's
the. Go ahead.
there's officers and volunteers in a wasteland looking for a child, and they're having a freaking house party.
Right. There was we heard talking, matter of fact, it's even, and I think there was a recording of it, of them with they were doing white back then. It was a statement made, oh, the white helps you cope. I mean cope. It helps you cope. So they were, and they stood outside, so we heard a lot of it because they were afraid
Mhm.
to go in because they thought the house was being bugged all the time. The house, it was being bugged from the pole outside.
Yeah.
So it was very disturbing to see that, and it continued in the courtroom with nobody there supporting him. Um, touch base, like, I got some things that, like, I'll talk about Billy Joe and Leilani at the end. But as far as the grandfather, I mean, nice guy. He appreciated me, talking to him. He had a lot of questions, like what happens and, what they're gonna do next. And, so I was very friendly with him. And, I told him, sorry what he's going through. But again, he was not there for Quinton. He was there for her. We know in the beginning though, out of everybody, the great grandparents seemed to be the most disgusted and upset about what happened to Quentin. Um, so, but he was there talking to me, and towards the end is when he talked to me. After that, he was very pissed off after the verdict. So, I mean, these people literally
Who?
expected, just like I said with Leilani's
Who
demeanor,
was pissed off? I missed
the
that. Who?
grandfather,
Why was he pissed off at the verdict?
because they didn't want her convicted, and now what they're trying to do is they're trying to still put the blame towards Danny. And they're just that reasonable doubt thing they're trying to use. And I'm like, so I told him, I said, I know it's bittersweet. He goes, well, you don't understand. I raised her. I helped raise her. I'm probably saying, yeah, because your daughter wasn't capable of doing it. So, I'm like, well, I said she should be grateful she had you to. And I
What
said,
is
but you
the
gotta,
probability in your mind? What is the probability in your mind that one woman would raise two murderers?
not much, not much,
What
you
is that?
know.
What does that tell the world about her kind of mothering that two of her children are in jail for the rest of their life, or one of them will be once she's sentenced for
Right,
murdering people? One being a family member, the other guy murdered some other kid. Her
right,
brother murdered some other kid, but she murdered her own offspring.
right. Well, as we can see, the way she's treating us with Leilani, she's not holding them responsible. I mean, I don't know about the son, but Leilani, she's just making as many as excuses for her as Leilani's making for herself, and it's and that's not helpful. I mean, what got me upset is they're using this now. Even if you remember hearing the defense tried to say at the end, um, now I don't know if this was on camera or if this because we heard a lot in the courtroom. I mean, we actually had little discussions among ourselves, and but the defense attorney, had said that I think this was on open, maybe in closing, that well, we don't know what really happened. It could have been the two of them that did this, and but together, but we don't know. Well, if the two of them, so they're trying to say the two of them trying to get the responsibility off of her, but we know it was her that dumped them. You know what I mean?
All right, hold on. So getting back to them saying that they can't say, but they did show a blanket that had blood on it, and they did
Right,
show vomit.
right.
So
I'm
that's what led them to believe that he was beaten inside that room.
right. I mean, a punch
You
to
just
the
broke
state.
up. You just
I'm.
broke up. Nobody could hear what you just said. What did you say?
Can you hear me? All right.
Yeah.
All right. I said, nobody really knows exactly what happened. I know in the beginning they were trying to say the DA really believed it was blunt force to the head, which it could have been. It doesn't take much for a 20-month-old. One blow would do it.
Yeah.
And it could have been something to the stomach, a big punch to the stomach, and ruptured something. But we know he threw up, and I believe he suffered. I don't believe it was instant. He had time to throw up, and I think he was lingering. And especially with her mentioning his touch being, he was warm to the touch and he had color. That disturbed. That's gonna haunt me forever. That statement, because that
Because
speaks
who would
volumes.
go over to a playpen
Right.
and check somebody's color and temperature?
Exactly. I mean, I'm sure it was, it was nighttime, wasn't lit up. So that was a big statement that, she made with that. But, the DA did a good job. The order that they put everything in and trying to blame Danny, saying, well, my phone was in the car, it was Daniel. Then what do? They bring on witnesses that show her in the store. You know what I mean? So they really had her. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
now the defense is trying to, say, well, it could have been the two of them. They were both messed up. Could have been the two of them. And so we don't really know what happened. I'm like, is that the best you can do? Is that all you got to go on? I mean, it would have been better for her to fess up, you know what I mean? And
Right, and
try.
I want to allow the audience to understand because there's some information we didn't have out at the scene that was brought up in this court hearing that we had no knowledge of, and that was the fact that she actually went a step further to try to cover the crime, not just by throwing him in the garbage and trying to act like somebody came in and stole him, but she actually took breakfast cereal for the infant
Hmm.
and try to sprinkle it all over the car in an effort to kind of absorb any type of bodily fluids. And she made a mistake because she never put the cereal back away in the cabinet. She left it out on the counter.
Yes, they have video of her at the store buying it. And the way that it was put in the sheet, way she described it, that had happened a while ago. She's never cleaned it up. Um, but as we know, you dump something like that into, it's gonna fall in a pile, and you're probably gonna just, push it aside. Try to scoop up some of it if she did. It's not gonna spread the way that she spread it. It was quite obvious what it was done for. So she
I
got
mean, because you
nailed.
could see it was taken and it didn't
Oh,
explode. Like, I mean, we've all had, like, remember the time that I had the sweetener? If anybody knows, I have a
uh huh,
container of sweetener. And remember, that was the first time, like, we've been in this office for a really long time. And that was the first time I got out of this office because this sweetener, it fell on the floor and it was like a plume of dust. It got on
right,
everything. It wasn't just in the area where it fell, like it extended the dust. Now this is not hard cereal. This is a powdered cereal that they
right,
used for infants to drink to be more full.
right,
And it was like a powder, almost a flaky little powder.
right,
And so if that would have exploded, you would have expected to see it in in the over the back bench seat, even to the front, because it's almost like a dust, so to speak. And I have an experience. And when it fell and exploded in my office, it exploded in my office. It wasn't just in the concentrated area, it was all over the place. This whole
right.
office, I had to break this whole office down and wipe everything down.
Yeah. Well, the cereal's a little more. It's probably has a little more weight to it than what the
Mhm.
sweetener would be. But
It's true.
it was so obvious that she went left to right with that to cover that whole back area. If you're gonna dump a bag of sugar, something falls. It's gonna fall in that main area. You're gonna have like a spot in that main area.
It would have more where it fell. It would have
Right.
more cereal. It wouldn't be evenly spread.
Exactly, nicely said, because that's perfect what you said. Because it was spread so evenly, so she went left to right, to left to right, and she made sure that whole area was covered. Nothing's gonna spill that way. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so they got her with that really well. They just had so much evidence. With her. It's just unfortunate that the camera wasn't working outside the dumpster, but the evidence I got her there with her park and everything was great. And I found some stuff coming out about her from the rehab that she went to, and she was in there using her middle name, and she was telling people that she was there because she was hiding from drug charges against her, and that if she was
Mhm.
there, that they couldn't charge her or do anything to her while she was there. They didn't really know who she was, but at one point she mentioned Billy Joe's name, and Billy Joe's name rang a bell, and that's how they found out who she was. And
Mhm.
after that, they were not allowed to even go outside. Once they knew what was going around, they weren't
Mhm.
allowed to be around her anymore. But she was in there. They said she was, like I explained, she was in there laughing, giggling, not a care in the world. And when they asked about, because they asked, people talking there. They asked her, about her children. She only said she had two children, and Quinton wasn't even found at this point. So she never mentioned having a third child. It was only two. So that stuff, was just recently coming out. And the thing
In
was,
her suicide video,
right, we
she
didn't know
talked
nothing
about
about.
Zane, she talked about Sky, and then after a huge pause, oh, by the way, I gotta, let me say something about Quinton. And
Right,
her comments, and like you could really see her hate for her own child. And this
right.
child, in my opinion, looked the most like her than any other children.
Oh, he looked just like her. And you know what? I'll guarantee she probably hates him even more now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
She probably hates him even more now. So that's why I think one of the reasons she had no feelings for him in there, because she's probably blaming him for her being in the situation she's in, which is pretty sick. But I believe that. Um, I know they want to use all this stuff now. Why don't they bring more of this up during the trial? They're going to bring up these accusations later on. And another thing is, Leilani, you had the right to get on that stand and speak what you wanted to. You should have went up there and said what you wanted to say.
And she
Now you
chose
want
not to.
no, you chose not to go up there and speak. If you want to blame Dan and you want to say this and that, then you should have went up there and you should have, if you were innocent, she would have went up there and fought for her life. She didn't, you know.
Hmm.
And then we can't
Because
forget
she could
Billy.
have easily explained everything, and she could have solidified pointing the finger at Danny and said, it was him with my phone. It was him driving the car. Because, in all fairness, outside of her being questioned about it and her admitting to leaving the
Right,
house finally, then she put herself in that car because they didn't really have any image of who was driving the car
right, right.
or who got out of the car, just that a
Yeah,
body got out and went to the dumpster. But it was her that told law enforcement, well, I had to go get Oragel. So she put herself in that vehicle.
right. Well, a lot
And
of
from
the
that
other
point
thing,
forward,
right. Good.
yep.
All right. The evidence they had shows that Danny's phone was put. Danny got up the next day, went to work. He didn't stay home. Um, as we could see when he left work, he was frantic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was no act. So they
He
just
ran. I mean, when he found out the child was missing, he didn't even clock out. He just ran
no,
out like a normal person would.
right,
It kind of goes to the Sebastian Rogers case too, because we've got a stepfather learning his stepson is missing, and he's carrying on with work like nothing happened, not notifying anybody that his child's missing. And you see the real action of somebody. This was a step parent, so to speak. They weren't married, but he was a step parent role in these children's lives, except for his own daughter. And you've
right,
seen his franticness when he found out his stepchild was missing. He didn't even clock out. He took off
right.
running.
Yes, he took off running, and I mean we got to remember the fact that one thing I was say, what was I gonna say something with the grandpa too, but now I forgot. Oh, the grandpa did state while we're saying while we're talking about her wanting to still blame other people. The grandfather told me, "Oh, there's a lot about Dan that nobody knows of." And I'm like, and my response was, "Well, why didn't it come out in court? Why are you guys gonna bring it up now?" Well, you know what I mean. So it's all stuff I think they're gonna try and use, and they really don't have nothing on that.
Yeah, I
Um.
don't think her appeals will be successful, but I want to rewind just a little bit.
Mhm.
What was the purpose of the drug dealer being on the stand? And and I know that they said that their sexual escapades weren't going to be brought into the court case, but the defense kind of opened Pandora's box. And so, even though the judge ruled that that couldn't be brought in
Right.
because they accidentally opened the box, they were able to bring that in. What do you think that did? How do you think that affected the attorneys, or excuse me, the jurors? And what relevance did it have that you could make heads or tails of being there listening to it?
I think it had a lot. I just seeing the type of people that she was around, seeing her she was spiraling. What this was she was just spiraling out of control, and this is what's been going on. You think of it for years. I mean, she started with the first father that failed. She started with the Quinton's father that failed. The third one was failing. So she was spiraling. She was arguing with the mother. She was evicted. She had a child support order against her to pay to Billy Joe. And I think it was just more added. It's like, okay, this is what she was doing. She complained about having her tooth pulled and she was in pain. Well, okay, go lay down. You had Danny there to help you. No, you were out. This is what she was doing that night that this happened. This is where her state of mind was. And I think that was very important for that reason. She was having, messing around with him, um, doing the stuff she was doing. And I think it just goes to show how much her life was just spiraling out of control. And Danny had been aware, he had kind of known this was what was going on, and that was his reason about getting in touch with her, like how long you're gonna be. Where the defense tried to spin it and say, oh, he was staying up waiting for her to come back with stuff for him. That was not the case. He was already in bed. He was already sleeping. Even Paul, testified that he was, already in bed. So I think it was, a big factor for that reason alone. I mean, just the sexual stuff really didn't matter much. But just the point of adding everything together, she's fighting for Danny and she's complaining about Danny not
Running
wanting
around on
her.
her when she's running around on him.
Right, right. So I think it just adds, just adds to the fact that everything was spiraling out of control. Her love life, all the kids' fathers that were in her life have failed her, didn't work out. Here she is with yet another guy, and she's not picking a good choice of So
Mhm.
she's not trying to change her life around. I mean, people do some things; their lives get changed around for the better, and you could see she wasn't doing that. You know what I mean? This wasn't a good move on her part. She wasn't going for someone that could help her out and get her out of the situation she was doing and maybe guide her a little bit because she really didn't have any guidance growing up. She was using the wrong people. And I think it was a big factor. When I'm telling you, when he walked in, they noticed. I mean, he just stood out. He, like I said, he didn't try to play the part and go in there and try to make a better appearance of himself. And then, the age difference. And he was very, very, they had to keep telling him to speak up. um, so I think it was I think and he was the one that she was reaching out to that night. So it just showed where her state of mind was that night on top of everything. So I think it was a good witness.
All right, and then we're going to be closing this part out. 'Cause I got three
Yep.
other cases but there's still several questions that I'd like to ask you.
Okay.
Tell me about the jury. Obviously, we don't know who they were. We didn't see those online at all, but you were there in the courtroom. Can you tell me how the jury was reacting to some of these things? Was there any emotion from the jury during, like there were some graphic photos that were shown. There was some graphic testimony that had to be discussed because you're talking about a 20-month-old boy that was murdered by his mother and crushed by heavy equipment in the processing of garbage.
Right.
So, can you tell me how the jury was reacting? I remember you saying there was one jury member that was keeping his eyes squarely on Leilani during the entire trial. Explain some of that to me.
Yes, I mean, like me and you, we pay attention when we're in a courtroom to jurors.
Right.
We pay attention to the defendant, which one thing I want to make point of, I was so happy that she was addressed as a defendant throughout the trial. Some attorneys don't, choose to go that way, but she was. Um, so there was this young guy that he was like my favorite juror. He sat at the end and he was very, on our side. He was close to us. And when he came in, I mean, he walked in. The first thing he did was look to see, who she was. And when he got in the thing, he just watched her throughout the whole trial. But if she turned to look at them, he wouldn't give her the eye contact. They never gave her eye contact. Um, and they were really stoic for the most part. I noticed I got a good feel for them. You never know with a jury, but I had a good feeling when they went out that what they were going to come back with a guilty verdict. They did a lot of more note taking. I noticed when it was they did a lot of note taking from the beginning. There was like 4 or 5 that didn't, and I realized later that 4 of them were the alternates that didn't take any. But they did quite a bit of note taking. This kid did a lot of note taking. Um, and not so much in the beginning. They did both sides, but as the case progressed, you could see the note taking was more when when the district attorney was, doing bringing up testimony, than it was for the defense, which told me, okay, they're not buying this. You know what I mean? Especially, I noticed like when Quinton, not the first set of remains came out, but the second ones that weren't shown, they had some reaction to that. A couple of juries were teary eyed. And they were very more emotional during the closing, and when they came out for the verdict, um, they wouldn't look. They kind of all glanced over her, which was odd, So they kind of looked at her, and then they didn't look at her anymore. And we know that usually that's a good sign for when they don't look at her like that. But they were kind of more emotional that day than I ever saw before. Was the day of the verdict, the closing, and when they showed the remains. And they also got a little. They got choked up when that the young woman, the law enforcement found Quentin's remains. They were some were choked up that day. But she tried to do eye contact with them, and they just weren't doing it. But for the most part, it was like I said, there was one, two, like five of them that were fairly young, and then the rest of them like middle aged and up. I was worried about a couple of them, but he was one of the alternates. He's the one that he fell asleep, and just wasn't. He looked like he just didn't want to be there. Like he'd get tired and just didn't seem like he was when like interviews were being played. He wasn't even really watching. He was just like dazing off. So he would take his eyes off a little bit here and there, but for the most part, you get a feel after a while for the jury. When I studied them every day, and you kind of get a feel, what their reactions are, and their big reactions were the babysitter, the what do you call it, Danny, and the drug guy. And I got to give hats off to Detective Lemon. This was her first major case. I'm not even sure it was. I believe it might even been her first murder case.
I didn't understand that. Detective who?
Lemon, the young lady, the one with the blonde hair that sat at the defense attorney. I mean, she
Oh,
became
yeah, yeah.
defense
This
district
was her
attorney.
first major case.
Yes, yes,
She
and
did a great job.
she did a wonderful job. She's gonna do great work for them. She did a very very professional job. She really did. Um, but and then also the guy that testified from the landfill. I guess he was like the head guy there. He was there for the closing and the verdict. He even showed up. So but it was just very overwhelming when for the closing. I was in the courtroom talking to the chief, and like I said, we're waiting for the verdict, and the knock came on the door, and it was weird because it was a statement, and we were talking with the court officer, like, oh, well, what does that mean? Is that a verdict? She goes, no, if it's a verdict, they'll say they reached a verdict. She said, but it doesn't say a question, so I'm going to put it as a question slash statement to the judge. So we weren't expecting that it was a verdict, because she's like, no, that's not how they usually put it, but that's exactly what it was. So to hear that knock is like your heart was pounding. It's
Right.
very emotional when you're waiting and when the verdict comes in. I think that was the most emotional part for the jury. You could see it, and the closing too. I don't think the defense really had much. They did what they had, but there was so much evidence on her that night. So I don't think any appeal is going to work for her. And I'm just
Now,
praying for the maximum sentence, life without parole, and then some. She could actually give her two consecutive. I mean, consecutive was where she does one after the other because she's got two murder charges against her. So they could do that with them plus the 19 other counts. They could
yeah,
actually give her life in prison and some.
yeah.
Life in prison without parole and then some, which would be
Because
great.
each charge carries their own sentencing guidelines, and
Right,
those can be concurrent or consecutive.
right.
So they do have that kind of liberty, so to speak.
Mhm. And there's
Now,
no.
I got to ask you one more question because I need to move on
Yep.
into another case. Talk to me, and this will be, and then I'll ask you for your final words, but talk to me about the verdict being read. Now, this, out of the whole entire trial, seeing her son's, you know, crushed remains wasn't enough to give her emotion, but the verdict finally woke her up. Talk to me about the verdict and the emotion in the courtroom, and of course, Leilani's reaction to the verdict.
Well, it was very interesting. You guys can go back and watch it. Um, the verdict, like I said, the verdict's always a very, everybody's very, tensed up. The courtroom was full, which was great, like I said. But like I said, minutes, and I'm saying minutes, I'm talking like 2 minutes. There was a young woman in there, blonde hair. You might have noticed her sitting in back of the defense table. She had been there all along on the hearings, and she always was chatty with her. They were always in each other's ear, and they would block with their hands, their mouth, so they were literally in each other's ear. And I don't know what the conversation was. It was like they were talking about something maybe just personal. I don't know. But she was laughing. I'm not kidding you when I say openly laughing, not smiling, openly laughing. Like, we're all in there tense, like waiting for this verdict to come in. And like, how is she so relaxed like this? Like, I'm kidding, Andrew, not a care in the world. It was crazy. And then she would
Mhm.
change her demeanor when the jurors walked in, try to play, put her hands behind her back and act like, whatever she was trying to act like. But what was really funny was when the defense asked for the jury to be polled. If you go back and look, juror number 2, which was my favorite juror, that young guy, I guess he didn't realize they were talking to him with the number. And there was like a pause, like maybe it might have been 10 seconds or more. And you see her go forward and turn to the left, like she thought literally one of the jurors was going to change their that's because he wasn't answering. It was like, I think her hopes got up at that point. But she didn't get emotional. I've watched it several times because, for the most part, I'm seeing her from the back because I'm in back of her. But I used to watch the court TV with cameras. Like I could see her from the front. So I went back and watched it. And she kind of started swallowing a little more. It took a little while to sink in. But when she really got emotional was when her defense attorney, like, kind of, I don't know if he put his hand on her and kind of talked to her. And that's when she got emotional and started breaking down. But never for Quinton. It was never for Quinton.
It was
No,
never for the son she
never.
beat and murdered and threw away from like trash. It was because she finally realized she is
Yes.
going to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law, and the jury wasn't buying their BS. She was convicted on all 19 counts.
Yep. That was the
So
only
any
time.
final words about the experience from, the time we were out there on the roads reporting from the sidelines to us becoming, protesting her arrest to the trial? Is there anything that any final words that you would like to express or state or
Yeah, just that, like, everything that you did out there was truthful. It was honest. It wasn't, there was no lies. I mean, what you stated, people told us was vetted in court. I saw it. And people don't believe when you say, "Oh, boots on the ground." You hear and see so much, and I mean, I witnessed it. It's true. I've been with you many many occasions going out to certain things, and I was amazed. So yes, that was nice to see.
we actually do work when we're out there, don't
Right.
we?
Oh my God. I'll
We
never be
work
like
very, very, very
Alex
hard.
Murdoch. We were out there. It was still pitch dark out. What 5:30? I think we were up at 3 o'clock in the morning getting ready for Alex Murdoch, and we were out there. We were the first ones out there, pretty much. It was I think maybe one or two other people. There was nobody out there yet, and yeah, Betty does not stop. Believe me, it's like around the clock. I mean, I don't think that day Alex Murdoch thing we didn't even eat that day. We never even ate.
Yeah.
So she's not kidding when she says it's around the clock. And same thing with Sebastian. It's like we're up and we're gone. I mean, there was like when we had the vigil last time. People don't realize. Yeah, you know, we're there. When we're there, we try to console. We're with Seth all the time. We're all
Yeah.
together as a team. You know, Tony, Andrew, me, and his wife, and Seth. And you know, and Seth enjoys it. You know what I mean? He's like comforted by us being there. Many
Because
people
he's
don't
all
know.
alone.
Yeah, many people don't know Andrew's very funny. I don't know if people realize that about you, but we have a good time. I mean, it's a sad situation, but while we're there,
We
Seth
try to keep
feels
him in a
comfortable,
happier
right?
light, you know.
And when we have to leave, it's heartbreaking. But like with being out there, boots on the ground. I mean, I had to, I witnessed it. I probably would be skeptical on some things too, but I mean, I've been there, and I can honestly say, I mean, it's what Andrew does is it's around the clock. I'm not kidding you. For Sebastian, we got there. It was okay. We went Seth. We went out for dinner. Then we went to Seth's house. We prepped for the vigil the next day. We had to sort the t-shirts.
We worked until 11 o'clock that night.
Yeah, we didn't get back to the
I
hotel
think
till
it was
almost.
past 11 before we
We
got
left.
back. I
We
mean,
left
people
Seth's
just don't
house at
understand.
11. Yeah, we left Seth's house at 11:30. By the time we got back to where we were up first thing in the morning. Back to Seth's house again. You know, so it really is nonstop. We're not. It's just people think when you come on camera, that's what they're seeing. They don't see all the work that you put in behind. It's
Yeah,
a
they don't
lot, a
see
lot of
anything
work.
when those cameras are off. And we used to keep the cameras on more than we do now, but it's
Right,
like, what's the point? We're here to try to advocate for these victims not be thrown under the bus by idiots that don't get out of their freaking own house and won't do a damn thing for a victim. We
right.
really do work for we work for the victims.
Mhm.
We do what it takes lawfully and legally for the victims. And yeah, I use the Constitution in every aspect of my career, every aspect of my business. And typically that's respected by law enforcement, except in Sumner County, where they trample all over the Constitution.
Right. But yeah, it's true. I mean, it's just nonstop work. I mean, we go
Let
out
me
for
ask you
dinner.
this. Am I a violent person out there, and do I riot?
Absolutely not. I mean that the last vigil that we had, we were playing with puppies. We were Andrew, the stuff that was going on. I go up to Andrew. Oh, did you hear this? There was somebody here filming, and she's like, no, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, she had no idea. I mean, this same woman is out there putting accusations out that Betty was the one that got her thrown out of there. And Betty didn't even know who she was. Never even seen her.
Never
I,
even
you
seen her
know,
until I was talking to law
right.
enforcement and saw her getting in her car, and I still didn't even know that was the lady that everybody was talking about.
Yep. Now I've been out
So
there
I
two
can't wait till
occasions.
her video footage is finally released so she can be made out to be a liar.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. We've got her following me around and on camera, and that's going to, if she comes around me again, she's going to probably most likely get put in jail for stalking. So
But I mean,
that's already been reported, and I've already got my paperwork here. So when I see her again, she goes straight to jail.
and I
Doesn't pass
can't.
go,
Yeah.
doesn't collect $200. She goes straight to jail.
I mean, but believe me, Andrew doesn't do. I mean, go out there and she's not violent. I mean, we go out there and we concentrate on helping Seth while we're there because that last day when we have to say goodbye to him, it's very
Hmm.
emotional. It's like you feel like you're abandoning him. You feel like you're abandoning Sebastian. My first trip back, I mean, I can ask Sonya. I mean, I kind of hold the Sonya. I was like, I mean, I'm crying the whole. I mean, when I say 8 hours home, I couldn't stop. It's like it just broke my heart to leave Tennessee, and but even like to say like the work that gets done when you were hemmed up, you know
Hmm.
falsely charged and held. Me and Tony went out there and
Poor Betty hemmed up.
hemmed up Betty. There's a new one.
Yeah.
Me and Tony went out there and he was doing drone searches, so it's like constant. You know what I mean?
It never
It's
stops. Even
it's
between our attorney visits, we were out there surveying areas and throwing the drone up to check different areas to see if they were promising. We found several promising areas that were relayed back to the PI, SES PI, to mark on the so when we get our the search group together, that those we're putting those in order for the search group to start clearing those areas because there's processes that go in them because they're private property.
right.
So those have to go through certain procedures to get us permission to go on them. But we did identify several new properties that we would like to search while we were in there in between attorneys. And,
Right.
it just never stops. People don't
It
get to
doesn't.
see all of that. And we're working around the clock to find answers. And that's why I said I don't really care what this judge or this community thinks of me or says. I have a right to be there, and I have a right to do my job, and I have a right to speak out of my mouth. And the government doesn't have a right to control that. This is
Right.
America. It's not communist China. So now I'm calling the community communist Sumner County.
Right. Well, what people don't realize is what you were hemmed up there, and our plan for that day on that, I believe it was on a Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to search that day. So people don't
Hmm.
understand. When these people come in and do these things, and they're calling and they're saying like for instance, one time you're driving drunk on the road, you're doing just anything to go have them go out there. They don't realize People don't realize how much it's hurting Sebastian. That's who's being hurt. We were supposed
Yeah,
to search.
Sumner County doesn't care about wasting taxpayer money there. They don't
Right.
care about wasteful spending. They don't care about improper investigations. They just don't care. They care about their power. They care about their votes and their voter base. That's it. And they're
Right.
willing to run over anybody, even somebody at my caliber, which I know a lot of people politically and otherwise, high powerful people, and they would have actually trample on mine publicly in front of all these people and expect to think that I'm just this little girl, this little YouTuber. I would have said, their detectives suck at their job. Some
Right.
of the detectives suck at their job because if they did a little bit of investigative work, they would know exactly who I am. And I am legitimately a investigative reporter. I'm legitimately a gonzo journalist, and I'm a legitimate conservative political activist
Right.
that
I mean,
absolutely fights for First Amendment causes.
you were brought up on false charges. I witnessed it. We all. I mean, when we went to court, I know people realized if they watched. There was 3 rows of supporters for you. All them
Hmm.
3 rows went spectate. People just going to. That was all. We all walked in together. They were all together for you. And the first thing, and we were told this by. We've been told this for a long time, months, that from the locals, that this was very, very corrupt, and you're not going to come in here and get a fair deal. And the minute we walked in there, we heard that judge come out and do a few things before us. We're like, this is done and paid for. I mean, we knew before anybody got
I
on
think
the
he's a
stand.
disgrace. I think he's a disgrace, and he's going to be ruling over me on my criminal stuff. And you know what?
Yep,
I'm still going to stand there and look him dead in his eyes and in the back of my head, just think about this is a disgrace behind a robe. This
yep,
is a disgrace to this community. This is a disgrace to conservatives. This is a disgrace to our Constitution. They bent the rules. They bent the laws. What they did, can happen in no other community. We call 28 counties in Tennessee. We haven't made it through all of them yet, but 28 counties said there is no possibility of this being a possibility, but yet it is in Sumner County,
right.
communist Sumner County.
Make sense. And what the judge, what you got on to, what you got to do, what this judge did was the thing that bothered, really upset me is he was trying to, he was bringing up stuff about wanted to find out about your channel. And when you were trying to explain everything, he shut you down. He would not let you explain exactly everything on what you do and how it's worked. And he only wanted to hear that little bad part.
He didn't care. He had
But,
already had his mind made up, and
mm-hmm,
he has taxpayers, and it's an election year, and he doesn't care
exactly.
how he wastes. He does. He's not. They're not. They're supposed to be fiduciaries of the public's funds, and they're not a fiduciary of the public funds. They've done everything wrong. I know this because I deal with politics on a daily basis in my own community. Hell, I've helped fire 2 county commission boards in my
Yeah.
own community
Yeah, he only
because
wanted to hear the bad.
I do come in heavy handed, and when I see something, I say something. There's no ifs, ands, or
Yeah.
buts. I'm pretty black and white.
That video, number one, shouldn't have been allowed, shouldn't have been brought in. And two, he went off of that, and he, based a lot of stuff on what he saw, but yet wouldn't let you explain anything to do about what you do in your channel. Like, briefly, he let you explain some, but he shut you down. He just said, all right, that's enough. I don't want to get into this. But yeah, he made his ruling pretty much around that video, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the
So
video was chopped up, and still
Mhm.
never broke any laws. I was screaming in
No.
my camera to my audience. It's not like I was standing. The only time I saw somebody was when they followed me. I addressed them and it was over. And,
Yep.
and, and I even specifically said, I don't need violence.
Right. No, I
But
can
he didn't
personally
care. He didn't care.
personally
He
say
knows I
that.
don't do violence. And he knows I wasn't stalking them. He didn't care. He violated my rights. And you know what
Right.
I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure that his violation of my rights is going to be absolutely, you know, breaking news when we get through this process, because he can keep violating my rights. He can throw me in jail. It's not where I want to be, but he can do whatever the hell he wants. He has that power. But when I'm done, the fat lady will sing, and you ain't hearing me singing yet. But when you see that cigar in my mouth,
Right.
his career is going to be just about tarnished with his ruling and stuff like this. And I know everybody's like, "Oh, that's not a possibility." Well, we're at the very beginning of this, not the very end
Yeah.
of it.
We have to ride the storm to get to the end, and in the end, you're gonna come out on top. You know. I mean,
I
he denied
absolutely
he
believe
denied
that.
you he denied you calling a witness. He denied, I mean, he just shut you down. I mean,
Well,
and basically,
we're committed to getting this out of the county if need be, and we're committed to taking this wherever it needs to go, because we are going to make history.
yeah,
And I'm here to make history when it comes to this type of garbage right here. I want to make sure it never happens to anybody else again. And
yeah,
whatever it costs is what it costs. We'll find a way. We have the ability to find a way. Right now, we're still trying to get through the appellate process, but
right,
I am 100% committed to making sure that this never happens to anybody again. And we have good precedent in Tennessee as well as in the United States. So this never happens again. And if it does, people have the ability, and so this stuff here shouldn't have to be required to appeal. It should be
right,
automatic. And that's what I'm going to start pushing for. And anything and everything around this country is making sure some rulings are automatically appealed.
right. And I like to, just let everybody know, not just because you're my friend, but I mean, people that have never met you or never got to spend time with you, don't really know who you are. I mean, Andrew's very friendly. Anybody she meets at the vigils anywhere, she approaches them. They all love her. I mean, she's a very funny person. You might not believe that, but she's
Mhm.
actually funny. Yeah, and I'm just please. I'm not gonna beg. I'm just asking, please, for all you that support her, please go out and donate. She's not fighting just for her freedom and her rights. She's fighting for all of our rights. I mean, First Amendment rights belongs to all of us, and hers were taken away from her, and that's wrong. I
Mhm.
mean, a dollar will help. If we have 500 people in the chat here and there, and you all put a dollar, there's $500. It adds up quick.
It
Um,
does.
she never
And it makes
asked for
a really big
anything.
impact without hurting everybody's
Yes.
pocketbooks. Because, I
So,
mean, to be honest with you, I advocate for these kids. I spend,
yeah,
like I said, I make very little money on the full impact that we do. When I
right,
was sitting down being interviewed this past when we were in North Carolina, they were shocked to find out how much money I make and how much I'm able to do with it. They asked me,
right,
how are you able to do it? And I simply told them, if it wasn't, I don't see how other people could do it, because typically families have mortgages, car payments, and
right,
stuff like that. For Chronicles of Olivia and I, we both have paid off homes, we both have paid off vehicles, and
right,
and those two are the biggest expenses most families have. And
right,
if we had those expenses, would I be able to be boots on the ground? The answer is no, I would not be able to be
mm,
boots on the ground. It's the way that our finances are set up that gives us the ability to be boots on the ground with very little money. We budget the hell out of our
yep,
annual budget. Some years I make 20,000, some years I make 40,000. That's still a small budget to do
right,
all that we do and pay my living expenses.
yep,
So that is, people don't realize that, how little money we do make on this. And that's what upsets me so much, is that there are people that make more money than us sitting at home condemning our work without even lifting a finger to help these families or help the cause.
right. I mean, you're always giving back. I know the expense. I've been there twice. I'll be down there again with you. Coming up next week for the vigil, and it is expensive. And not only that, it's the work. I mean, Andrew works very, very hard. I mean, she has stacks of paperwork. I mean, I spent time with her. I mean, she would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, sit up in the hotel bed, and the first thing she does is pick up her paperwork. And she's already working, and she's not what she's doing too. You people don't understand it. She goes to these cases, and she's bringing the cases to us for the people that cannot be there that are very interested in it. So she's working for everybody. She does give back all the time. She never asks for anything, and that's why I'm saying, please, go out and donate. She never asks for anything. She deserves it. Like I said, any amount will do. You know what I mean? If you have $1 and that's what you can give, we appreciate the dollar. You know what I mean? Just support her and be there for her, like she is for the victims and their families. That's all she's trying to do is advocate for the victims who no longer have a voice, and support the families that are devastated already, and just being beat up for no other reason than because they can, and it makes them money, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yep. Yep. Well, thank you so much for lending us your time. I appreciate all of it. I wish I was there. Leilani was one of the ones that I wanted to be
Yep,
there front and center, but with
I
the
know.
hurricane, everything going on, I just couldn't. I wanted to be there for at least the trial, and then I couldn't even make it to North Carolina, but the producers were pushing, anything and just to get me there, and so
Right.
it was a little bit of an inconvenience, but I'm glad I got to meet Daniela's family. I'm glad I got to hear her story, and we're going to be discussing that in just a little bit. Guys, stick with us just for a little bit. We're not going anywhere, so just sit tight. Thank you, Karen, for your time. Thank you for
No
being
problem.
there, and thank you for standing up for Quinton Simon, Baby Q.
Oh, I told you I'd be there to the end. I was there supporting both of us. Everybody knew who I was there with for. So, that's
Well,
what
God
matters
bless
the
you.
most. All right, I'll be seeing you soon too. So,
All right, thank
all
you.
right,
Bye bye.
take care.
All right, guys. So that was the Leilani case. I wanted to go through just a little bit of information here because I think it's important. I got to add my screen if I can. Hold on a second. Leilani is a case that we were boots on the ground, found out a lot of information about this case. Hopefully it's on the right one. Hold on, I think I'm going to have to refresh. Give me just a second. Wow. There is oh, there it is. There's the video right there. I wanted you guys to see this.
I think I'm right in saying that roughly about 2 weeks after Leila went missing, you started to receive some really weird requests on Cash App. Is that right? Could you just tell me about those messages, the sums of money, and what those messages were saying?
I absolutely can. I was out. There had been tips left in comments, like on my Facebook and on a couple of TikToks that had been done about the case. So I was going to these different hotels and things. People, oh, I saw her here, I saw her there, blah, blah, blah. So I have flyers made up and I'm going to different places, talking to different people. I'm sitting outside the Travelers Inn in Kingsport with one of Leila's childhood friends. And Leila's stepmother sends me a screenshot of a Cash App request from Leila, and it was just letters. It was a string of letters, and she kept getting that over and over and over again for $100. So I immediately get in my Cash App and I send $1 with a little note because I'm thinking, okay, she can talk back and forth with me this way. I send $1 and I'm like, is that you? And I get the string of letters too. Well, it takes us a few minutes, but it turns out that the letters were initials for they will let me go or they won't let me go, something along those lines. And we're trying to have a conversation back and forth with this person on the other end. I give it a break. I go inside the Travelers Inn to talk to the woman at the front desk, and while we're standing there talking, I showed her the screenshots.
Now, I will tell you guys that I was at the Travelers Inn. I spoke to them. There was it's in a really crummy area. But this is a mom that has been looking and hasn't stopped looking for her child since her child went missing. Leila Santanello, again, went missing on June 27th, 2023, over a year ago, and hasn't been heard, seen again. Now, remember, she always reached out to her family for help, for money, to talk to her daughter. And ever since that day, nobody has seen or heard from her again. So I'm going to, this is just a few minutes. We're going to stop it a few times just to talk about what Jennifer has to say in this interview. But I think it's interesting and it gives us kind of an update of where we are in this case since we were unable to follow this case. We went to a certain point and then, the case kind of went, kind of dormant a little bit while law enforcement was doing their investigation. And we didn't want to, we had a good working relationship with Jen, with the detectives, and we didn't go all out. We made sure that we were in areas that they weren't searching in. We worked with them. For example, we wanted to go to a certain area to search, and law enforcement couldn't give us any information other than that area hadn't been searched by their law enforcement, and they just wanted us to give them an opportunity to search an area before we went in. And of course, naturally, we complied with that. We're here to help these families, and when we see law enforcement engaging and wanting to find the victim, we definitely will be in their shadows, so to speak. We'll always let them bring in, because we know the importance of chain of evidence. We know how important that process is. And if there's an area that law enforcement hasn't checked, but it's on their radar and they want to check it, we will always make sure we take a back seat to the investigation, hands down, because we can go in there after law enforcement. We've gone in after law enforcement every single time. And in some cases have found some things that law enforcement had missed. But if we would have went in there first, it could have screwed up some chain of custody issues. And we never want to do that. We want to make sure that law enforcement can get in, clear these areas, and then, go back with a group of people to further review that area after that area is cleared by law enforcement. Because again, people do miss things. We've missed things. Law enforcement missed things. The reason why it happens is because we're called human beings, and human beings by design make mistakes. So we understand that. And again, in this particular area, we had no problem in this particular area of Tennessee. Law enforcement didn't treat us like pure garbage, and they weren't a communist community like Sumner County.
And she said, "Oh, that's a scam." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She was like, "Yeah, that's a scam. That's a thing that's been happening. It's been all over Facebook. People are hacking into other people's Snapchats and like acting like they've taken their person and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Yeah, but my person's actually missing. Like, there's no way that's a coincidence, right?" She's like, "It might be." And I'm like, that would be wild. Like, come on. So we contact authorities and we send all the information. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, stepmom is still engaging. Okay. At some point I was like, because we had asked specific questions.
I'm not sure what's going on with the audio on this one, but it sounds like the audio is going in and out. So if you guys can't hear it very well, please consider turning up your volume. But don't turn it up too much, because then she comes in clear. It's really loud.
Like, what's your brother's middle name? What's your baby brother's birthday? Like, specific questions that she would only know. And this person just ignored them. If I had gotten even one of those answers back, I might have taken it like, oh, okay, that's Leila, we need to do something. But when this person was avoiding the questions that would actually identify her, I was like, no, something's wrong here. But then periodically throughout the next several weeks, they kept coming in. The cash apps just kept on rolling in. And at first, even the authorities were like, oh, we're pretty sure it's a scam or a joke, or someone's had access to our account, blah, 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 blah. But then the request started to get more and more threatening. They were like being very detailed about the things that they were going to do.
And I think we captured a lot of these details in some of the videos that we had done related to this case. We learned about this, a lot of information due to the investigation and the integrity of the investigation. Jen did not share with us at the beginning of this case, nor did we really want a whole lot of information shared with us, because that's why we're there. We're there with a blank slate. We only want very limited informational facts related to the case. And then, of course, we, take those facts and start following the leads ourselves without any type of outside influence. And we follow those. And so we had identified certain areas in our internal investigation into this case, into this matter, for journalistic purposes. And we identified areas that we thought would be prime for searching. The first thing that we did when we came on the scene in this case is we went to the last place that we knew for a fact she was at, and that was the AmeriCorps. We knew that she ran toward woods. But before we talked to a first person, we looked at the layout and the location, and we actually identified the area of woods we thought she would run to before we knew or confirmed that those were in fact the woods that she ran to. And once we identified those and then talked to witnesses and confirmed and corroborated that information, then we actually put our boots on and went out in the woods to try to locate her steps or where she slept. And we did find a little encampment. Now, we know that multiple people use that encampment, but it was also well known to the people that were staying at the AmeriCorps Hotel. And we do believe that she did stay in that area. And she came out in a way that we ended up going out and seeing her path of travel. We actually started from the creamery and worked our way back. And there was a lot of problems that weren't jiving with the creamery. We have now learned that it was another woman at the creamery. It was never her, because we had a lot of questions. We absolutely confirmed and corroborated with eyewitness testimony that she came out of those woods and she was walking toward the green belt. But when we got to the creamery and they described this lady, it was described, I mean, it sounded like Leila point blank, but the height was different. The height was different on the for that lady, and that wasn't described to us, but was later confirmed and corroborated to have been another person. And that other person actually came forward and spoke to law enforcement. So we know beyond a shadow of a doubt the creamery has nothing to do with Leila Santanello. And that it was the odd duck, to be honest with you. And we identified that being the odd duck. We did believe the information and the testimony from the person that gave it to us, which was the lady that was working inside the creamery. But, again, it was two women dressed in almost identical clothes, black pants, spaghetti strap top, and no shoes. That was the way Leila was described. That was the way this lady was described. We don't believe in coincidences, but we know that there are some coincidences that do exist, and this is one of them. It was just a weird situation, but it truly was not Leila. But now removing the creamery, it gives us more ability to see the case in its raw form, because that was the odd duck. We couldn't figure out where she was from 9:30 to noon when she showed up there. We had that issue. And where did she go after that? That was the other issue. Now we know for a fact she got on the green belt, and from the green belt, we lose her tracks. We don't know where she went, but we do believe she was picked up. We have no video evidence of her being picked up, but there's hardly any cameras in Kingsport. So that's not an oddity. She didn't have a cell phone. So there's no way to really track her movements by normal methods that people are accustomed to today. But she has not been seen. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. She has not been seen. She has not been heard from. She hasn't logged into her social media. She hasn't asked mommy and daddy for money. She hasn't, called terrified, needing help in another state. She just poof, disappeared. And we are in Tennessee, which means until she's found, they may know what happened for all I know, but until she's found.
If we didn't send the money, and I'm almost positive that between all of the conversations that we had, because you had to send $1 to send a sentence, we probably did send the money. That's the sad thing. So they did request access to that account, and it took several weeks before they actually got the access and were able to pinpoint where it all came from. But they did find out where it came from. The residence that it came from was fully searched. She was not there. There was no sign that she ever was. It seemed to be a crime of opportunity. She had Leila at some point had logged into her Cash App account from someone else's phone and never closed it back out. And at some point, this person realized, oh, Leila's missing. I could make some money off of this.
So this is one of Leila's friends that was sending these messages?
I can't specifically say.
So I believe that it's possible that this was prior to Michael Thompson's arrest. Now it's public record. Michael Thompson, her boyfriend, was arrested for these requests for payment. He's been charged with, I can't remember exactly what he's been charged with, but I know one of the charges is extortion. He's still in jail right now. So I feel more comfortable saying who it is now that he's been arrested and charged with this. I think that this was kind of a unknown at the time. Like, we had a feeling who was responsible, but we didn't know for a fact because we didn't have like IP, all the stuff law enforcement had. But we had our theories and our speculation based upon facts that it was most likely her boyfriend. And of course, her mom's not wanting to address it at this interview. But again, since this interview, Michael Thompson has been arrested and charged and is currently in jail for this situation. So, according to law enforcement, now he's innocent until being proven guilty in a court of law, but he has been accused and he has been arrested on those accusations.
Asked not to speak on exactly who it was publicly.
Yeah, that's fine. I won't make you name names, but
yeah.
I mean,
but that happened. Like, it was added torture and trauma on top of an already terrible situation. As of right now, there's no reason to believe that the person that did it had anything to do with her disappearance. It just seems like it was somebody who thought they could have a little come up on our expense.
I mean, that's just, sickening.
Yeah.
So there we have it for her. Now, I'm just going to move this tab on over, and then we'll have just a quick discussion. So that is Leila Santanello. Let me show you a photo of her real quick. So if you guys, because in all fairness, she has not been found. She has not been deemed deceased. Okay. So there's always a possibility that she is out there in the world. She's out there in the world and she needs to be found. Hold on a second. This is not it. Rogersville review. I don't want to show that photo of her. I don't think that's necessary. Here's one of all of her. Let me see if I can get this one up. Why aren't these things posting right? I might have to just share this. There we go. Here we go. We'll share this one. So there is, let me see if I can make this bigger. Where's my plus? Nope. Up. I'm on the wrong screen. There we go. Sorry, guys. Hold on, let me try it again. There we go. There is Leila Santanello. If you guys have seen her anywhere, there has been some sightings of Leila Santanello, none that have panned out. So if she is fairly tall. She is 21 now. When she went missing, she was only 20 years old. A few days later, it was her birthday, her 21st birthday. No child. There it is, right there. 4'10", so she's shorter, 115 pounds. So she's a shorter girl, and she's very slender. Okay, she's short and slender. At the time she disappeared, she had the dark brown roots, but the blonde hair. And she's got brown eyes. She's got several tattoos, but the most notable ones are Roman numerals on her collarbone and Nova Grace tattooed on her left forearm. These are marks that cannot be changed. And I would be looking, if you see this young lady here anywhere, check those arms if she has no shirt on and her arms are exposed. If you see anybody with the tattoo Nova Grace, then that could be her. Please call your local 911 and report her. She could be anywhere. The area that she was at, y'all, it's not the most uncommon thing for her to be trafficked, in all fairness. She could very well, let me put this back up here like that. Yeah, there we go. Now I'll do this one. She could very well have gotten with people that won't let her go. I mean, there is that possibility when it comes to this case. So I just wanted to put it out there. She's near and dear to me, this case right here, and I'll explain why. Many of you guys may or may not know my history. One of the reasons why I went into politics and political activism is because I myself was a troubled child. I myself engaged in substance abuse and other things. This could have been my story. Jennifer could have been my mother. And nobody was willing to help her and help her advocate for her child that was missing, because her child wasn't perfect. Her child wasn't a Gabby Petito. And the mainstream media wasn't picking up her child's case because her child wasn't what the criteria that mainstream media wanted. We're not mainstream media. We're alternative media. We take the throwaway cases. We take the ones because at the end of the day, these are human beings. We don't pick and choose the winners. We run the cases that are brought to us, that we have engagement with the family, that we find problematic or interesting, something that keeps my attention or makes me want to work hard. Those are the cases that I bring to the case. I know we hear all the time that we only go after the national cases. We made this case a national case because nobody was listening to this mother and her plea. It was one of our audience members that brought this case to this channel because she was listening to her friend crying and nobody listening and nobody helping. So we went out there and we made her face and her name go viral. That's something mainstream media refused to help this family do. we're very proud of the work we do on this channel. We're a very controversial. I'm a very controversial person in some of my my work, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Controversial does not equal unlawful. I stay within the confines of our laws to do the work that I do, but I'm very good at what I do. This is a case that we have an idea of what happened, but you know what? Just because we think it doesn't make it true. She could be out there somewhere being trafficked. She could be anywhere in the United States. So if you guys see her, this is Leila Santanello. If you guys see her anywhere, you see her in the dark hair, you see her in the moderate hair, you see her in the blonde hair. This photo right here, hold on, let me hit this. 1 second. This photo right here was taken before she disappeared. So this was the most recent of the photos. The most recent of the photos. I had an opportunity to speak to some of her friends from the past, and they hardly even recognize her. This was not her. She was struggling. She was going down the wrong path. But just because she was going down the wrong path doesn't mean that she deserved not to be here or what could have happened to her. It's a sad story. It's a sad story. But her mom is fighting for her. Her mom is fighting for her very, very hard. And we always like to gravitate toward the families that are fighting for their child. And we step in the place of families when their families aren't fighting for their child. And we fight for their child in their absence. Some of them are intentional. We'll be discussing the Sebastian Rogers case in just a few moments. So again, avocation for Leila Santanello. If anybody has seen her, you're asked to call immediately 911 from your area and tell law enforcement right then and there from wherever you're calling from, Leila Santanello is there. You saw her and you need somebody to check it out or do a welfare check. We did get some concerning leads in a different state. So again, that's why I'm throwing the possibility. We do not want to stop looking for Leila Santanello. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for allowing me to just go over some of the details of this case. Now we're going to move on to the newest case that we got before we jump into Sebastian Rogers. Let me get all these stuff closed out real quick. Hold on. Let me put this up. Okay. Hopefully it helps my lag a little bit. Okay, well, we got lag on this one because it's just the way that they did it. So bear with me. So I wanted to discuss with you guys about this newest case that we have of Daniela Mendiola. One of the problems we have is that this is yet another small, corrupt county. Two of the states that I've always had a little bit of a problem. Well, I have a major problem with Tennessee and the way their law enforcement design is set up. We need to fund them, and we need to make sure that their law enforcement stations are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the public, the ones that pay the taxes, the one that these people work for. And when I found out that, because in my community, in just about 90% of the country, we have law enforcement stations that are open around the clock. And the first time we learned that law enforcement stations are not open is in the Riley Strain case. How did we learn that? Because he disappeared and his fraternity went to the Nashville Police Department to report him missing. And when they went to pull the door open, it was locked. They had to call a phone number and have an officer meet them there. What? This is downtown Nashville where God knows what happens. How about if somebody was chasing somebody and that was a safe place for somebody to go to feel protected because somebody's trying to gun them down or knife them down or rob them or harm them? And we found out that the law enforcement, the sheriff's office are closed. I lost my crap. And then somebody in the chat's like, well, that's how it is in North Carolina too. And I'm like, well, typically North Carolina has better law and order, right? And then we have the Daniela Mendiola case, another small community, corrupt to its core, treating people that don't look like me differently than people that do look like me. And I am disgusted because you guys know I sit on my pedestal all the time saying that, this whole racism thing is blown out of proportion. It's not as widespread as everybody's trying to make it believe, but there's still cases of it that we come across. And this is one of those cases where it is literally, hold on. Terry Johnson. Let me go back to 2005. I had those cases. Hold on, let me go to my email here and let me look up who sent me those. Here it is. Alamance Sheriff's Department. Let's read this. Just so everybody knows what we're dealing with here. ACLU, Justice Department documents discriminatory practices by Alamance Sheriff's Office in latest court filing. Now, I want to remind you, this is 2014, but the 2005 case was really, really bad. I want you guys to understand what we are dealing with when we're dealing with this community. The U.S. Department of Justice yesterday filed a motion for summary judgment in its civil rights lawsuit against Alamance County Sheriff, ASCO, in which it asked the federal court to rule quickly in order to stop the ACSO's unlawful discrimination against Latino residents. Hold on, let me put this up a little bit. Give me just a second. Hopefully you guys can see it a little bit better. There we go. The motion for summary judgment expounds on the Justice Department previous claims that ACSO, under the direction of Terry Johnson, fosters a culture of anti-Latino bias among its deputies, including alleged use of racial slurs, disproportionate traffic stops and arrest, and examples including an ACSO captain sending his subordinates a video game premised of shooting Mexican children, pregnant women, and other quote-unquote wetbacks. The aberrant and unconstitutional practices outlined in this motion should not be tolerated in our state and cannot be allowed to continue, says Raul Pinto, staff attorney for the ACLU, North Carolina. After receiving several similar complaints about Alamance County Sheriff for years, we continue to urge Sheriff Johnson and his department to immediately cease these discriminatory practices and comply with U.S. Justice Department requests at once. All residents of Alamance County deserve fair and equal treatment from their law enforcement officers. The lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court of Middle District of North Carolina in December 2012 charged ACSO under direct direction of Sheriff Johnson intentionally discriminates against Latino persons in Alamance County by targeting Latinos for investigation, detention, and arrest, and conducting unreasonable seizure and other unlawful law enforcement actions in violation of the United States Constitution and federal law. So I want you guys to understand when I say this, we have evidence of these discriminatory practices, and we have a Latino, a Hispanic descent
17-year-old girl that appears law enforcement didn't care about her. They handed latex gloves and evidence bags to the family because they didn't want to collect the necessary evidence for this case. They intentionally are throwing this case for the prior Liberty County Sheriff's, our police chief's family member. It's disgusting. It is white versus brown in Alamance County. And if you have brown skin, you're treated differently. And that is going to be the stain on this county. And I'm going to happily make sure that we broadcast this very public and disgusting stain to the world. A human is a human. Period. This was a 17-year-old girl. She deserves every bit of justice. That man kicked a cell phone off the road before law enforcement got there. That's a metric in which can be that can help decide where she was, how fast he was going. He messed with evidence of a crime. He lied to law enforcement, saying she was in the middle of the road when you could clearly see where she was hit in a driveway because his car left the road over a lane into the grass. He left the scene and returned back into another car, and it took a protest before they realized, oh crap, we need to arrest this guy before this turns ugly. That is not how you seek justice. Law enforcement should be above that. Shame on the people that thought that this brown-skinned girl doesn't deserve justice, or that the prior chief of police and his family member that likes to do substances and get behind a wheel of a car and drive excessive speeds should get a slap on the wrist. It was only a matter of time before somebody was going to die because of his behavior, and it happened to be a 17-year-old girl. And it's freaking just disgusting that the family had to go pick up her nails, her hair, and her teeth off the side of the road. It's disgusting. Absolutely, utterly disgusting. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to make sure her voice is heard loud and clear. Loud and clear. We dealt with law enforcement there. They tried to mess with people for no good reason other than to mess with them. That's not honorable and it's not respectable. There needs to be a change in that county, just like there needs to be a change in Sumner County, communist Sumner County. So we're going to continue to raise our voice, but I wanted people to understand the true reality. And everybody, these little keyboard warriors that do the Google search, Alamance News, the ones that's been saying, oh, this isn't true, that isn't true, is part of the problem. That's why we have alternative media in there, making sure that the truth is heard by the public. Because if you're trusting your mainstream media, you're going to be screwed. They're lying to your face. They're lying in their reporting, and they should be ashamed of themselves because this is on the back of a 17-year-old girl. And I guarantee their tune would be changed if it was one of their 17-year-old girls. Just saying. We keep it real over here on the Bullhorn Betty channel. So that's our avocation, our passion, and my screaming to my audience. Communist people. What else? I think now we're going to get on with Sebastian Rogers. And then we're going to be fairly quick because we're going to be coming back later today. We're going to have, right now it's 12, so we'll be back around 3 or 4. And we have an exclusive interview tonight at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. You are not going to want to miss this exclusive interview that we have. I think you guys will be very happy to be here. and to see the interview that's going to be coming up. I've got to get over to TikTok and do a live over there, which we will do. But I just want you guys all to know that we are going to be doing a live. I'll be setting it up and doing the thumbnail after this. Don't forget to make sure you get notified, and don't be late. Don't be late. You don't want to miss anything. Okay. It's going to be a special. We don't do a whole lot of interviews on this channel. And when we do, we try to make it the best we can and get you guys the most up-to-date information about the case. Thank you, Michelle. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. And that's the way it is with all of our cases. I am, because of my First Amendment rights and privileges, I am looking at up to a year in jail on November 20th. I can't think of any more honorable reason to go to jail than fighting for our rights to speak freely in a country that we are told we can speak freely in, and our government can't, intrude on those rights. And for a 15-year-old autistic boy that I feel something terrible happened to him at the hands of his mother and stepfather. And this communist community is trying to tell me I'm not entitled to my opinions, and I'm not entitled to vocalize those opinions on my channel. I say the hell with that. This is America, and I'm going to stand strong, even if it means me going to jail. There are some things worth fighting for, and our constitutional freedoms are absolutely that. They shall not be infringed on by our government, and I'm going to stand strong with my head held high, and I could give a rat's ass what that judge sits there and tries to condemn me for. I have a right to be here. I have a right to express myself, and I have a right to be free in the freest country on the face of this earth. And if anybody has a problem with that, you can kiss my white breaded asterisk. Now, let's get on with the case that is in communist Sumner County. So it's been over 7 months since Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers disappeared from inside his locked home where he was residing, allegedly with only his mother. We are learning from Silvers on the scene. I would love to get, you know what? If anybody knows Silvers, reach out to Silvers and see if he would be willing to interview with me. I would absolutely love an interview with Silvers and his wife about this case and what they have come across. I'd like to pick their brain. They've been boots on the ground when I can't, because we have a communist community that's trying to limit my movements, again, against a violation of law. Man, this community violating law. I've never violated the law there, but they are. It's disgusting. So now it's been over 7 months since 15-year-old Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers disappeared from his Hendersonville home, leaving his family, friends, and community members with more questions than answers. Maybe it's because his family's lying, in my opinion. 7 months into the investigation, communist Sumner County sheriff, because I'm not going to say law enforcement officials, have not reported any new information. From day one, when this happened, I visited the command center when they had it set up. Don Schmidt, Sumner County Commissioner of District 18, he seems like a really nice guy. I got no qualms with this guy. He was pushing when everybody else was telling him to shut up. So kudos to him. God bless him for everything he's done. Law enforcement, all our emergency personnel are invested in this, invested in trying to find him. These men and women, they really pull their heart and soul into this. They did everything they could, and I'm sure they are still doing everything they can. And I commend the worker bees on the ground, and I just have disdain for top brass in this case. However, the teens remains at the center of an Amber Alert, with an FBI offering $50,000 reward for information, and our beloved Dwayne Chapman, Dog the Bounty Hunter. What a great man. What a great godly man. He has not only matched that, he's raised it. The new reward is $125,000 for information leading to the safe return of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers or the proper conviction of those, plural, responsible for his disappearance. The celebrity bounty hunter joins into the search efforts earlier in September and has one of the most recent developments. In an interview with Channel 2, Chapman called one of the most horrendous cases of a missing child he's ever worked on, adding he believes the increased reward money will help them find the answers they've been looking for. I'm just hoping for a positive outcome from this, Seth Rogers, Sebastian's biological father, told News 2, that he is alive and that he's healthy so I can bring him home. I can tell you that Seth wants nothing more than to bring his son home. He is absolutely lost without his son, which is a polar opposite to the mom and the stepfather. And damn the communist county that can't see the forest for the trees. Not my problem. But what they don't get to do is take my voice away because they want to be idiots. Early on in the investigation, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation warned against spreading misinformation online. However, as the months have dragged on, the case has been at the center of social media controversy and rumors because the stepfather and the mother has paid disruptors on this case. The mom and stepfather has paid disruptors on the case. Fact find that. That is not misinformation. That is true, accurate, and correct fact. However, as months have dragged on, the case has been the center of social media controversy and rumors, with Seth stating that they're experienced online harassment and have only seen threats increase. And that's a true statement. They have kind of taken over the airways and created defamation campaigns against my clients, says Joseph Lesniak, who's representing Seth, Chapman's, and others, including Bullhorn Betty. Instead of keeping their eyes on the real important things here, which is finding this young man. Seth has continued actively searching for his son since he went missing on February 26th, when his mom and stepfather sat on their ass with their thumbs up it, and still said he has not given up hope despite this situation being one long nightmare. Searches have stretched as far as western Tennessee. Many community members have also continued to aid in the search by putting up flyers. Be careful putting up flyers. Communist Sumner County likes to arrest people that do that. If they put the flyers up without a smile. As long as you have a smile and say, we love the mom and stepdad, you don't have to worry about going to jail. But if you don't say it, or you tell them in your audience to go F themselves because something doesn't smell right, guess what? Go ahead and just put your hands behind your back after you put that flyer up, because you're going to see an inside of a jail cell. Why? Because we're in communist Sumner County. Many community members have also continued to aid the search by putting up flyers and holding vigils, as well as other gatherings. In August, a group of people with Sebastian's Army gathered outside a Sumner County sheriff for answers or updates in the investigation. I truly believe I was arrested to try to prevent that. So you know what I did? We bonded out of jail, and we made sure our voice was heard right in front of the place that wanted to violate my rights. And if they're going to do that to me, there's no hope for this boy being found, because they clearly have their priorities all messed up. However, little new information has been provided. Look at that beautiful smile. And his favorite snake, Brownie, that his stepfather punished him and took away. This boy was treated so barbarically from his family, his mom and stepfather. It's disgusting. And I'm going to say that as a statement of fact. As a statement of fact. He was punished barbarically. He's an autistic child. When he didn't clean his room, he had to pack up everything, or his family came in there and threw everything in the garbage right in front of him. He had a snake taken away because he forgot to feed a snake or take care of a snake right. He was an autistic boy. Every time he turned around, he was being punished for being autistic. It's disgusting and sick. And the county could have done something to prevent this boy disappearing. And once again, they chose to put their thumb up their butt and do squat to help this boy until he was missing. And they're still protecting the people that hurt him the worst. Fact check that, Sumner County. We would like to see a PIO. That's a public information officer, and just to see some updates. They could care less. Why? Because they're not working for this boy. They're working for mommy and stepdaddy. That's why. And if they're not, then they need to prove that, because the way the rest of the world is seeing it, it seems like they're working with the bad guys instead of the good guys. We got tips and stuff coming in, and we didn't know if law enforcement was following up on them, Seth said, but now we've got Dog's team. He has a whole team of attorneys, lawyers, and private investigators. At this point, my clients are focusing on getting leads and keeping the public and helping law enforcement in any way they can. This channel will only help the FBI. We'll only help the FBI because we have more support from the FBI than we do from the state law enforcement or the local law enforcement. I have been condemning TBI since the Summer Wells case. And so, there's a love-hate relationship there. I have absolutely condemned communist Sumner County for their practices. And I'm not talking about the worker bees. They have to follow the instruction of their commanders. And so I am a top brass type of person. I condemn the decision makers, because they're the ones that are ultimately responsible for everything. And so I never want any beat cop, any investigator, anybody like that ever feeling like I'm condemning them, unless I am condemning them. Like I have absolute condemnation for Detective Lisa Byington, which has been part of this county for 20 or 30 years. But she lied under oath in statements for me. She's lied to the judge once, and she lied on an actual affidavit once. So it tells me that she is willing to do anything for an arrest, and that's scary when she has these big busts. So I'm going to make sure that we're front and center and her name is rang out as much as possible, because I want to make sure that any defense attorney that has an affidavit from her really hones in on those affidavits, because she's willing to lie. We have proof she's willing to lie. And I'm not going to shut my mouth up about this factual information, especially in my experience and what I'm dealing with. In the initial days after Sebastian's disappearance, law enforcement carried out several massive search efforts near his home off Stafford Court and at the landfill in Kentucky, where trash went from his neighborhood. And I think that that's not accurate either. We hear that that's not the trash that the neighborhood goes to. That's the trash that the construction site goes to. So I'd like some clarification, because nobody's clarifying this and they're jumbling this up. And this is not the information that we have being boots on the ground. Month one was intense for the first half of it, Seth explained. It seemed like there were a lot of people on board trying to find Sebastian. And then it becomes a circus, because you got the hate channels being paid to run interference. Neighbors were also asked to check their yards and any sign of the teen, and numerous search warrants were issued, with cell phone data analyzed and other digital evidence searched and documented. Still, those efforts yielded few clues as to Sebastian's whereabouts. In March, authorities announced they were scaling back the ground search, to focus on more on the investigative side. You mean standing down side, because you got your taxpayers that you need to worry about before you worry about this child or non-taxpayers that are in your community. That's right. Of this case, by April, hundreds of tips had poured into TBI. One possible sighting was reported a few months later in North Carolina, but later dispelled by law enforcement. Other possible clues, a pair of glasses and a pair of sweatpants found during the search effort, have also turned out to be a bust. After announcing a new reward in August, FBI said agents are continuing to provide assistance to Communist Sumner County Sheriff's Office in a search for Sebastian. Another prayer vigil is expected to be held within the next month, and anyone who has information could prove helpful in finding Sebastian is urged to contact authorities. We have 833 Tell Dog, And we have tips.fbi.gov. I'm not giving Sumner County's number out, nor am I giving TBI's number out. And why am I not doing that? Because I don't trust any of them, quite frankly. I don't know if they'll ever get my love or trust back. I respected TBI during the Sumner Wells case, but I'm no longer willing to sell my soul to the devil and lie to my audience, because let's face it, every time we have a major case where a child's not found, what do? They decide to, we're going to scale back. We're going to the investigative side. And then nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens. The case just gets cold. Summer Wells is a solvable case if somebody would get off their duff and solve the damn case. Get with the Cold Case Foundation. Get with Chris McDonough. I have high respect for Chris McDonough. I really do. You guys know he doesn't ever say anything good or bad about Bullhorn Betty. Even if he did, I still have high regard for him and what he does. I still believe he's actually an investigator, and he actually investigates, unlike these other so-called law enforcement on these platforms that are just YouTubers. That try to say, oh, this, that, and the other. But hey, I used to wear a badge, but I don't believe in upholding the Constitution of our United States. Like Duty Ron, sorry about his, maybe that's what's wrong with his brain. I don't know. You know, I wish him the best of luck with his cancer treatment and everything. I'd never want anything bad to happen to anybody. But I would prefer somebody that says they're past law enforcement and a past investigator to actually investigate before they open their trap. Cancer or no cancer, I'm pretty much a equal person, right? I'm an equal opportunity person. I treat you as you treat me. I don't really care about your pity party, right? I'm sorry. Emotions set aside, I don't care about the pity party. Do I don't want anything bad to happen to him? Of course not. I wish him the best. I hope he, has some, stuff that can help him. I had a very good friend of mine that had brain cancer. And she fought. I remember we used to have little things around the community, fight like Denise. She was in remission, and then it came back. And we knew, everybody knew once it came back, she wasn't going to have that was said at the very beginning. If it comes back, it's much more difficult. Well, she had a young son and a loving husband. And so it came back, and she knew, so I do, I feel bad. Don't get me wrong, even in my disdain for his commentary and his lack of investigative work, especially when it comes to me. But I would never want anything bad happening to anybody. But it could explain why he's being a little more disgruntled than he usually is. He usually rises above. Chris McDonough never says anything bad. I don't think he gets into it too much. And not only that, I don't break the law. Am I loud? Am I obnoxious? Do I make my point and make sure that the victims are front and center? Of course I do. If that's a problem for an ex-law enforcement officer, I'm sorry. As far as ex-law enforcement is concerned, he ain't got it. Okay? I'm sorry. I know a lot of great law enforcement that actually like me, right? And they get it. They get it. And they support my freedoms, whether they agree with it or not. They support my freedoms, my right to be free in a free country and in a free society. If you're not breaking the law, whether you like it or not, you accept it. And communist Sumner County wanted to try to prevent it. And it's disgusting. Because this is bred in their law enforcement. You can see it's in their DNA in that county. And so we're going to be working for the next probably 10 years on that county. They have no idea the hornet's nest that they kick. They can throw me in jail for a year. I really could give two shits. They can do whatever they need to do to me. But I'm telling you, once it's done and over with, they're still going to have to deal with me. They're still going to have to deal with Bullhorn Betty. I don't break the law. I don't break the law. So after all this is done, just think about how much they just poked a bear. I follow the law, and I will make sure that I push that Constitution to its breaking points in that community. when I'm exonerated, and when this case is finally moving in the right direction, when law enforcement and their political bullshit get out of the way so the case can be solved. Excuse my language, it's still a little hot topic because I am going to be facing possibly going to jail. And I tell you, if I'm being arrested, that judge is not going to like the information coming out of my mouth on the record. I will tell you that, because it's a communist county. I'm going to keep calling it a communist county until they start realizing we have a constitutional right and constitutional freedoms that may not and shall not be infringed upon communist community leaders. So we will criticize, we will commentate. Guess what? We will raise our voice. We will even assemble. And there's not a damn thing the judge or the sheriff can do about it. Why? Because we're doing it constitutionally and properly and under the law. That's why they can't do anything about it. And they're trying to, because they're like, oh, you said we can't do anything about it. Let me show you. Okay, show me. Show me what you're going to do. Oh, so you're going to break the law and violate people's rights to show me. Got it. Got it. We're going to continue in this community. We're going to continue advocating for Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, and we're going to continue keeping the microscope where it needs to be, because we've done the work. Law enforcement has done the work, and I guarantee you they're looking in the same place that I'm looking, but they're too busy trying to condemn me for saying it out loud. Enough said. Mic drop. All right, guys, you take care. Rock it out with your coffee beans out. We're here covering 4 major cases. We're covering more than the 4 major cases, but we're really passionate at this moment about the 4 cases we're covering. Today, we went over Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. We went over Leilani Simon. We went over Daniela, Mendiola, and we just had the real Me Too up here explaining to us about the Leilani Simon trial. We were out there reporting on the baby Q, Quinton Simon's case, waiting for mom to get arrested. And of course, they were dragging out and dragging out and dragging out to the point that we started realizing that this mother is not going to jail after murdering her child. And so we decided to go ahead and start advocating for this child and advocating for Leilani's arrest. And we started poking the bear a little bit. You know, we started going after the mayor, going after the chief of police. We started turning it from just being up there raising our voice to actually attacking the decision makers in this community. And that's when things started to take an ugly turn. That's when they started violating people's right and putting no loitering signs in a residential area that needed to be legally challenged. They started doing hairy things when you started going after the politicians, much like Sumner County, because we are going after Eric Craddock and his crap leadership. And we are going after these people publicly. And what are they trying to do? I'm an outsider, not a taxpayer. Let's lock her up. Let's lock her up. Let's not lock the people up that probably did something terrible to their child, but let's lock up the biggest critic for them. The biggest critic for them. And let's try to say that she's not media. Great job. Great job. Yet I have cameras out wherever I go. Great job. So we'll be doing that, buddies. Oh, and this crackpot PI, this deceiver. I can't wait until we start getting into how this Yahoo got his PI license. We're going to be going after those too. I have a funny feeling, because he did some unscrupulous things to get that label. PI. We're coming for you, Bubba. We're coming for you. All right, guys. I love you. God bless. Rock it out with your coffee beans out. TGIF. Today is the first day of November. Is November going to be a Thanksgiving? We'll find out. A few days, about a week before Thanksgiving is. We'll see if Bullhorn Betty is going to be in jail being thankful for the corruption of this community. Communist Sumner County, here I come. I'll see you, baby. November 20th. God bless.
From the East Coast to the West Coast, we are everywhere true crime is. We are asking for the public's help. We are searching in the woods. We are doing what it takes here on the Bullhorn Betty channels to find answers to the most alarming cases we have been watching on the news. I can tell you personally that I have traveled this entire country seeking these answers and bringing that content right here to you here on the Bullhorn Betty channels and Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. We are happy with the work that we've done. We've brought many answers to the public, and we have defied mainstream media in our pursuit of the truth in these cases. We will continue to work, we will continue to fight for these victims, and we will continue to tell their stories here on my channels. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty brand of channels and the Coffee Club. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for allowing me to bring these victims' stories to each and every one of you, advocating for each of these victims. God bless you. God bless America, and more importantly, God bless our victims.